Special presentation.
Hi, I'm John Delano, Money and Politics Editor, KDK Television. And our very special guest is Samantha Tamburro, who is an attorney, an immigration attorney at Rogers & Rogers in downtown Pittsburgh. Attorney Tamburro, thank you very much for being with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So let me ask you about really these children who are coming across the border in Mexico, from Mexico to the United States. It's my understanding that some of those children end up here in Pittsburgh. What can you tell me about that?
That's correct. We have a home here, Holy Family, that's contracted through the Office of Refugee and Resettlement to take in children. When the children arrive at the border, a lot of times, depending on beds and availability, they're sent throughout the United States. And we're lucky enough to have Holy Family here that takes in children here in the Pittsburgh area.
Holy Family certainly has a great reputation. Do you have any idea how many children are there?
No, I'm not sure how many are currently there.
My understanding from others is that they're slammed. I mean, that there's lots of folks. I don't know if, are you aware that on their website, they're actually in need of additional people with preferred Spanish speaking skills? Have you seen that?
I have. I've seen they have constantly hired in the past as well. And they've actually asked for donations before too for the children. My understanding too is, I'm not sure how long ago it is, but they actually expanded and added more beds because there was a big need.
Why are children sent to Pittsburgh from the Mexican border?
I mean, I don't know why particularly in this area. I think it's just more when ORR contracts with a nonprofit organization. If there's one available in the area, they send them throughout the country. I'm not sure that they're specifically looking at the Pittsburgh area. It's just that Holy Family has availability and they're able to take care of these children.
How difficult is it for children? I mean, they're separated from their parents by their parents' choice, because presumably if they're with their parents under this administration, they would not be separated. Is that your understanding, Samantha?
Yes, that's my understanding. Yes, these are children that are not with their parents when they come through. They're called unaccompanied minors. We usually call them UAC. Yeah, usually they try to find the parents if they can. If they can't, sometimes the parents are still in other countries. They'll try and find family members. So the children are usually here for a short period of time while they're trying to find family members. They can pass the clearances because they still have to give them clearances to show that they have no record of child abuse or anything serious. If they can't find them, they try to work with the foster care system a lot of times in the area to try and get the children placed into foster homes.
From a legal standpoint, when they're in the United States as a minor, what exactly is their status here?
They're still considered undocumented. That's part of the reason why most of them are in deportation. So they're still considered undocumented, just like an adult, and they would go through a deportation process as well.
Does that mean that children actually get returned to their home countries? Does that happen?
Yes, children are deported quite often.
Often?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So these children who come to Pittsburgh, I mean, presumably they have parents and relatives somewhere. And is it the current U.S. policy to unite them?
And that's been the policy all along, even under the previous administration. At Holy Family, they would try and unite them with a family member if they could. If they can't, then they try to place them in a foster home is the next best option.
And is that likely to be here in Pittsburgh?
Children are placed in foster homes all the time in Pittsburgh. I currently have a foster child from Guatemala.
And I know you are fluent in Spanish, but a lot of folks are probably not. Is that a requirement?
It is not a requirement. However, one of the great things is they've been working with certain agencies around Pittsburgh, Jewish Family and Children's Services, Casa San Jose, Presley Ridge, to try and find Spanish-speaking homes. I know my very first placement He was placed in a completely English-speaking home, and the child was very afraid, and he ran away, or attempted to run away from home, I think they told me. And so they worked really hard to try and find a placement that spoke Spanish, so that it helps, so that the child's not as afraid and he can understand. I believe sometimes when they're really stretched tight trying to find Spanish-speaking homes in Pittsburgh, they're still sometimes placed with homes that don't speak Spanish.
Right. Samantha, have you ever had an opportunity to speak to some of these undocumented, unaccompanied minors? And can you share with us? I mean, it's got to be very, very difficult and traumatic. What can you tell us about this experience for them?
I have spoke with a few and out of Holy Family when I've worked on cases through Jewish Family and Children's Services or through Casa San Jose. And I've actually, of course, because I'm an immigration attorney, and these are some of my favorite cases to do because I love helping children. So I've spoke to numerous children privately where we've been retained by family members that have received them into their home. And, you know, a lot of them are frightened. A lot of them are scared. They're just, you know, looking for a little love like any child from anywhere around the world and a little bit of caring. But, you know, some of the stories about what has happened when they came through the borders, because many of these children are coming through 2-3 countries, I don't want to say horrible, but some of the stories are horrible, and they're very frightening. We try to actually get help for the children. That's why we tend to work with all these different groups together. Casa San Jose Latino Center are some great resources for these children when I know that they have psychological problems or other problems, to help connect them with Spanish-speaking help.
Do you think when they get to a place like Holy Family Institute, do they know what's going on? Do they understand? I know it may depend on their age, but do they really understand what's happening to them?
No, I have a child living with me that was released from Arizona, not from Holy Family. He was released. It was another Catholic organization, another home at the border. And he was so sweet. When he was released to me, he was only 12 years old. And he actually thought he was living in a school. And we had explained to him, you were actually in an immigration detention center. If you had ran away, it'd be the same as running away from a detention center. And he was so sweet and innocent. It took him months for us to actually try and explain to him that he wasn't living in just a school. He really had no concept of what was going on, that he was actually in detention. And because of COVID, they weren't having deportation hearings. So he hadn't actually had to go to court because everything's on hold. So it made it kind of worse trying to explain to him. You know, he would actually argue back with me and say, no, that was just a school. I'm not in deportation. I'm not. So I think a lot of these kids don't actually grasp the actual impact of what's going on. In some ways, that's good. I think they're doing their job and making these kids comfortable, making sure it's like a school and it's not a jail. On the other side, I think it's good if they're the appropriate age that they actually understand the seriousness of what's going on and that they could be deported.
Yeah. And I guess I keep coming back to this, but it's important for them to be reunited with family members. And I guess, can you give us any sense, Samantha, how difficult that is, or what the government is doing on that score?
I'm not as familiar with what the government is doing. I know that because we're private as well, we have a lot of family members that come and hire us once the children are reunited with them. They may be cousins, uncles. So they are finding family. I don't know the extent or the numbers to, how many they couldn't find, but I do know that there are family members that are found, and they are quite often able to reunite them with them.
Is that in fact what is happening with the children at Holy Family Institute, that there'll be an effort to try to find family members for them so they don't spend, well, you tell me how long they spend time there. I don't know.
Of course, that's always the best option. If they can find family members, they try to reunite them with family. That's always the first option. And usually, Holy Family, a lot of the children coming out of there are reunited with family.
Well, that's good to know. And then finally, Attorney Tamburro, since you work in this area, if there was something you would want to change about the immigration laws and the system that we currently operate, particularly when it comes to children, what would you recommend?
I would love to see that there's a requirement for children to have a right to an attorney in the hearing. Currently, they don't. And there is some belief out there that children do not need representation. I would love to see the laws changed to say that every child should have mandatory an attorney in court with them. It's something that really bothers me in the criminal system. You know, we already have a right to an attorney if we cannot afford one. And children in the criminal system are given an attorney for some weird reason in the immigration system. We don't take it as serious.
So the bottom line is that when there is a deportation hearing of some sort, the 10-year-old does not have legal representation?
They either have to hire an attorney, which if you don't have family here, it's very difficult, or they have to rely on pro bono attorneys. In Pittsburgh area, Jewish Family and Children's Services provides pro bono attorneys for Holy Family and for children that can't afford, but they're swamped. And so it would definitely help a lot of these nonprofit organizations that are doing that if there's something more mandatory by law.
Well, Attorney Samantha Tamburro, thank you so very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. This was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a CBSN Pittsburgh special presentation. We now return to our scheduled programming in progress.
Weather-wise, you can't ask for much better than this in March. Temperatures mid-60s. You get the sunshine. Just